Alright everyone, welcome back. I'm Winter, and today I'm bringing you the Liberator unit guide. The most asked for unit guide that I've had recently. The Liberator is, well, let's just go over it real quick. The Liberator, in Liberation mode, well, not Liberation mode, in anti-air mode, your normal flying unit, pretty quick flying unit, relatively fragile, with only 180 HP and 0 armor. Is a strong anti-air unit against light units. It's specifically designed to counter things like mutalisks. For example, you know the mutalisks usually come in as a flock. The Liberators come in, do their splash damage, and they kind of chew through these mutas. They have a tougher time with things like armored units. Because, of course, usually armored units have longer range and more HP. And soon Blizzard is going to be nerfing them against armored units as well. So, but if they can get up close to them, they still do a lot of splash damage there, as you can see. But not as reliable against armor units. So pretty much the Liberator in the air is a good anti-air unit. It can chase down things like warp prisms. And sometimes even medevac, stuff like that. But if you're facing mass mutalisks or mass phoenixes, it can be a good option, or Sky Terran in general. But another big aspect of the Liberator is the anti-ground mode. You siege it up, just like you siege up a siege tank, it becomes invulnerable. And it sets up what is colloquially known as a liberation or freedom zone, whatever you want to call it, where it does single target damage, but 85 damage. That's enough to one-shot a Marine, two-shot a Marauder, three-shot a siege tank. Was that two shots? Yeah, it's two-shot a siege tank. Okay, well, I didn't actually realize it was that good. But it's very good. It does a ton of damage. Now let's go to a place where this can be used. The big thing that the anti-ground is used for, besides big army fights, is for harassing mineral lines. Let's look at a mineral line here. We got our Terran player happily mining with SCVs, and we're going to bring a Liberator into it here. Now, the way you want to set up your Liberators to attack a mineral line, you don't want to have it right here. I mean, you can cover the entire mineral line, but you're also vulnerable to attack. The key with a Liberator is to set it up in a way that you can hit several mineral patches while not being very vulnerable from the ground here. And now you see as the SCVs mine, you can pick them off. With Liberator range, this becomes easier and easier. But now, alright, I'm going to go over one more thing on how to use the Liberator before we get into how to kill it. Arguably the most important part of this guide, as most people are not asking how to use a unit, but how to kill a unit. But, alright, the other important thing about using Liberator, let me bring it back here, is how you attack with it with your army. So, I'm going to add, say, 5 Liberators in here. We're going to get, usually what you'll want is a couple siege tanks underneath, and then you have your standard bioforce, maybe with a couple medevacs, something like that. And let's say this is most commonly used versus Protoss, I would say, but sometimes versus Zerg. But most common versus Protoss, especially attacking up a ramp and stuff like that. But say you're facing this strong Protoss army, several Stalkers, Immortals, lots of Adepts. We'll throw a few Sentries and Zealots in there. And now we look at this Protoss army is 90 supply compared to just our 45 supply Terran army. But how do we make this Terran army effective? This is just a strong brute force army. Now what's very important is you never take a fight without realizing when that fight and where that fight should be happening. If this army comes down, it walks down, and I'm like, I'm not paying attention, I don't have vision. Like, oh no, there's a Protoss army here, this is bad. And then I'm sieging everything up. I'm still going to be in a tough spot. Even worse if he targets down the Liberators. But yeah, as you see, bad things can happen. And now the Liberators are out of position. But, oh, that's not the button I wanted to press. But, say you scan, you see this army up here. And you know he has to get down. This is a situation on a lot of maps where you have to come down the ramp to try to fight an army. You already have yourself set up over here with the Liberators. You can get the tanks set up as well. And, I mean, this is a very ideal situation. But now, this Protoss army says, oh, god dang it, I gotta come down here. But your tanks are already set up, your Liberators are already sieged. And even trying to target down the Liberators here, you get an idea. Maybe they'll chew through the bile, but eventually the Liberators will rain down too much freedom. And that's kind of how you want to set it up. I'd like to keep my Liberators on a different hotkey to make it easier to use them. Now, alright, for the important question. How do you kill them? Okay. First off, we're going to go back. We're going to reset. We're going to clear this out. We're going to go back to that mineral mining. This is the first example here. The Liberator is sieged up behind your mineral line. So here are your 3 counters in the early game that you're going to want to use. Your 3 basic counters. 1, if you can scout a Liberator coming and you have a Stargate, ideally you want a Phoenix. Now, if you don't, another way you can do it is by creating pylons behind your mineral line to overcharge. I'm not going to show that right now, but an overcharge pylon should be able to hit a Liberator. So usually you'll see Protoss players put pylons near the vulnerable positions, especially when they know Liberators are there. It takes 3 Stalkers. 2 Stalkers won't do it, and 3 Stalkers are going to have a tough time. Ideally, you want 4 Stalkers to kill a Liberator before it kills the Stalkers to kill the mineral line. But the ideal counter against this early harass is the Phoenix. As Terran, your best counter early on against early harass is just getting a Viking. By the time they already have a starport and have built a Liberator, you should be able to build a Viking. The Liberator one-shots Marines. A Cyclone is another okay counter. Like if you don't have a starport done and the Liberator sieging up, you can make a Cyclone because it can target it down from out of its range with its lock-on ability. But the ideal counter is the Viking. The Viking just straight up outranges it, and in a 1v1 fight wins as well. And it's a lot cheaper. Now, Zerg, there are a couple different options for dealing with that early harass. The first one, obviously, against a normal Liberator, you want a Spore Crawler. You want a Spore Crawler behind your mineral line. And Spore Crawlers are convenient because you can unburrow and reburrow them. Now, this takes a little bit of mini-map awareness. Like, you're realizing your drones are dying on the different angle of the mineral line, right? But I like to use camera location hotkeys. I go over that in another video. To flip between my bases. Not just as Zerg, but all 3. Actually, you know what? I'll make another video just to go over camera location hotkeys as well. Because I think I only go over it for Zerg. So look forward to that. Remind me in the comments. But another counter to Liberators. Okay, now we're gonna move a little bit into how to counter Liberators in a fight. So that's the early game harass. But how to counter them in a fight. We're going to assume the Liberators do not have Liberator range, advanced ballistics, which costs a lot and isn't something that you'll usually see very early on. Once they get Liberator range and their Liberators can siege up from 6 miles away, pretty much you need air units. You need Corruptors. As Zerg. Hydralisks do not counter siege Liberators. I'm just going to show you a dramatic example as to why this is true.
We read you.
Let's go ahead, set these guys up.
Perfect.
I don't want to see any more people. Alright. We got 9 Hydras. So, I'm going to get ya any second now. No, it doesn't work. So don't do that. If you can catch them out of position, maybe. But you can use Vipers with Parasitic Bomb. That's just a quick example of that. Vipers, Corruptors. Now, obviously, you want them... If they have like 10 Liberators, you're going to need more than 2 Vipers. But when you fight, you want to spread out your units. This goes for Terran and Protoss as well. But usually, what we'll see is the Liberators are all sieged up. So you can get the Parasitic Bombs to do damage to all of them simultaneously. And there you go. Now, as Protoss, you got a few Liberators sieged up. Usually you're not dealing with Liberators as anti-air, but as anti-ground, zoning out your army. So as Protoss, ideally what you have are Tempests. It takes 4 Tempests with +1. I don't actually know, that's Vikings, to one-shot a Liberator. It actually, the 4 Tempests should be able to one-shot this Liberator. Am I right about that? Not quite. Okay, but 4 Tempests can 2-shot Liberators. And another good addition to when you want to counter Liberators is an Oracle. So this way you can have vision, because the Tempests have very long range. but they don't always have very long vision. If you can throw a Revelation on these Liberators, then if these guys are sieged up from far away, they can still see them. Obviously, they can see them here because it's a test map. But in-game, you know there's the Fog of War. Anything you can do to remove the Fog of War for the Tempest is going to be great for you. Now, ideally, when you have these Tempests, you don't just want Tempest, because then they can make Marines and just run under your Tempest. You want some Templar with Storm, and then you want your ground army to be protecting it. It's kind of how you position. This also comes down to not letting him get into a position that's going to hurt you. So this is why scouting just actively is so important. But your basic counter to the standard Terran attack of having 6 or 7 Tempests sieged up and you just can't fight anymore. Blink Stalkers can work pretty well. Say they are going for an early attack. Let's get rid of these guys. Victory. Rest in pieces. But say they have several Liberators sieged up, maybe an army underneath it. This is just a small attack early on. We're talking maybe below 100 supplies, 8, 9, 10 minutes into the game. Nothing maxed out or anything like that. But Blink Stalkers can do all right. But you do need to micro them. That's very important. So let's say this is a few too many Liberators for an attack of this timing. But he's sieging up. He's got his forces below them. And while this is kind of scary, now imagine you have a bunch of Adepts. You should have a bunch of Adepts, maybe with Glaives or an Immortal or two, but you can blink by, target these guys down, and then the rest of your ground army should be able to clean this up. Obviously, you don't just want Blink Stalkers against that type of army, but that's kind of how that looks like. You do have to be targeting. Alright, now I'm going to talk about one more counter. Now we got Zerg. A lot of Zerg players complain about the effectiveness of the Liberators. And it's just so hard to deal with them. Now, there's one thing I want you to enable. This should be for all races, if you've seen my gameplay settings guide. But we go into gameplay settings and show Flyer Helper. This allows you to see where on the ground you can hit an air unit. This is very important. I'm about to show you in a second. This is very important for Ravagers. Because you see, you don't want to shoot at it in the air. You want to shoot at its indicator on the ground. Attention! Is very important. A lot of players I see just whiff their Ravager shots because they don't realize that you're not shooting at the Liberator. You're shooting at where the Liberator is on the ground. So now you see these indicators here. Alright, there we go. You see the indicators there. And you want to shoot at the indicators. So it takes 3 Ravager shots. You don't want to just waste all your shots there on the same one. But a lot of players will just siege up all their Liberators at once, especially at the lower levels. Alright, one sec. We'll go back to it. But yeah, if you're lucky, they kind of panic. They see your army. It's like, oh, siege up. And they're all stacked up. And if I aim perfectly, you can hit several at once. Of course, you got to be ready. Once they get like 6 or 7 Liberators, then you're going to need air units. It's simple enough. It's simple enough. But these are the counters to the Liberators. Once again, just to reiterate, early game against the Harass, Protoss, ideally a Phoenix, but you can use Stalkers and Pylon Overcharge. Usually your minerals won't be set up like this, so they won't be too difficult to deal with, but early scouting is very important. For Terran, just a Viking or a Cyclone or a well-placed turret. If they go for a Liberator early on, that's a big investment because it's pretty easy for Terran to kill. And for Zerg, either you can use the Ravagers, the Spore Crawlers, maybe Queens. If you have a few Queens to transfuse, you can just straight up fight the Liberator, even if it's firing on the Queens. But overall, Liberators, they are a very strong unit. And they're very important to be included in your unit composition as a Terran player. But they are not invincible. And with a little bit of proactivity and presence of mind, you can liberate yourself from the Liberators. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck, have fun, happy Starcrafting, like, subscribe, all that stuff. See you guys later.